The first alien warship ever to enter Earth's orbit did not fire a single shot. It did not demand humanity's surrender. It did not threaten extinction. Instead, it asked where the nearest scrapyard was. For nearly 80 years, humanity had listened to whispers from stars, encrypted radio bursts, strange navigation beacons, fragments of conversations between civilizations so advanced that humans could barely decipher a fraction of their meaning. Slowly, painstakingly, Earth learned the common trade language spoken across much of known space. That was how humanity first learned of the Dominion, the greatest military alliance in the Orion Arm. Thousands of member worlds, millions of warships, an empire so vast that entire civilizations disappeared into its bureaucracy without anyone noticing. To them, Earth wasn't important. It wasn't dangerous. It wasn't even interesting. Humanity was officially classified as pre-expansion species 7291b, a developing civilization, potential future trade partner, minimal strategic value. When the Dominion finally visited Earth, governments around the world prepared for history's greatest diplomatic meeting. Military satellites tracked the incoming vessel. News networks broadcast 24 hours a day. Religious leaders gathered to pray. Children skipped school to watch the skies. Everyone expected first contact. Nobody expected a garbage delivery. The ship emerged from hyperspace beyond the moon. It was enormous, nearly 5 kilometers from bow to stern. Its armor hull carried scars from ancient battles. Thousands of weapon ports covered its sides. Even inactive, it radiated power that dwarfed every spacecraft humanity had ever built. Then the transmission arrived. It was translated automatically by Earth's linguistic AI. The message contained only 18 words. Obsolete military vessel designated for disposal. Approved transfer recipient, planet Earth. Ownership relinquished permanently. Silence spread through every command center on the planet. General Marcus Hale stared at the translation. That's it. The AI confirmed. No additional message detected. Another transmission followed 30 seconds later. This one included video. A tall, silver-skinned alien appeared. His uniform carried enough medals to cover half his chest. Behind him stood dozens of officers trying and failing not to smile. "My name is High Logistics Overseer Kaler." His tone was polite, almost friendly. The Dominion regularly donates outdated equipment to developing civilizations capable of benefiting from educational study. He gestured toward the gigantic vessel floating behind him. This battle carrier served honorably approximately 212 standard years ago. A few officers behind him chuckled. Kaler ignored them. The ship has been stripped of all classified technologies, advanced weapons, strategic databases, and military-grade reactors. He smiled. "We hope your people learn something useful from what remains." Another pause. Then he added, "Please refrain from activating any surviving systems. They are likely beyond your technical understanding." The transmission ended. Across Earth, millions watched in stunned silence. Then came the headlines. Aliens donate obsolete warship. Earth receives galactic scrap metal. First contact becomes interstellar charity event. Social media exploded. Some people celebrated. Others were furious. One late-night comedian summarized humanity's mood perfectly. "They crossed light years just to dump their junk in our backyard." The joke spread around the globe. Scientists, however, were not laughing. 3 days later, the United Earth Assembly met beneath Geneva. Representatives argued for 11 straight hours. Some wanted to reject the gift. Others wanted to dismantle it immediately. Military leaders feared hidden surveillance systems. Economists wanted to auction salvage rights. Only one person remained unusually quiet. Elena Carter, Chief Director of the Earth Advanced Systems Laboratory, 46 years old, former aerospace engineer, quantum physicist, the woman responsible for humanity's first practical fusion engines. She listened to every argument, then finally stood. "I'd like permission to board the ship." The room fell silent. President Sofia Alvarez looked toward her. "You heard the transmission. They removed everything important." Elena nodded. "Exactly." Several ministers exchanged confused looks. The Dominion removed what they believed mattered. She walked toward the central hologram. The alien vessel slowly rotated above the conference table. They removed weapons. They removed reactors. They removed encrypted computers. She pointed toward the massive internal framework displayed on the hologram. But they left behind the ship itself. No one answered. Elena continued. "If our civilization abandoned an aircraft carrier, would the steel suddenly become primitive?" She zoomed into the structural frame. "Their oldest engineering is still centuries beyond ours." Another image appeared. Power conduits, armor supports, sensor mounts, cooling systems, artificial gravity channels. The skeleton of this vessel may teach us more than its weapons ever could. General Hale folded his arms. "You think there's still something valuable aboard?" Elena smiled. "I think an empire that's 10,000 years old has forgotten what it's like to invent." She looked around the chamber. They discarded experience. We still know how to improvise. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, President Alvarez asked, "If I approve this mission, what exactly are you looking for?" Elena answered without hesitation. "Mistakes." The room blinked. "Mistakes." The Dominion stripped technology. She looked directly at the president. But no civilization removes everything. They remove what they recognize as important. She paused. "I'm interested in everything they overlooked." 48 hours later, the first human boarding team crossed into alien history. 48 specialists, engineers, material scientists, physicists, computer experts, linguists. No soldiers, no politicians, no cameras. Only people capable of understanding what they found. The massive airlock opened automatically. No security, no locks, no defenses. Another insult. The Dominion hadn't expected anyone to steal garbage. The lights inside glowed faint blue. The corridors stretched into darkness. Everything was enormous. Ceilings 8 meters high. Walls without visible seams. No exposed waiting. No bolts. No welds. The ship looked grown, not built. Dr. Elena Carter stepped inside first. She placed one gloved hand against the nearest wall. Cold, perfectly smooth, almost alive. Behind her, materials expert Dr. Malik Hassan raised a portable scanner. The display flashed, then froze, then flashed again. He frowned. Scanner malfunction. He reset it. Same result. He switched to another device. Its screen instantly filled with error messages. "What is it?" Elena asked. Malik slowly lowered the scanner. His face had gone pale. "I don't." He swallowed. "I don't think this wall is metal." Elena turned. "What do you mean?" Malik looked back at the endless corridor. "No." He whispered. "I mean, I don't think humanity has a word for what this material is." For nearly 30 seconds, no one in the boarding team moved. Dr. Malik Hassan kept staring at his scanner as if it had betrayed him. 3 different analyzers, 3 different manufacturers, 3 identical results. Unknown material. The device wasn't identifying an alloy. It wasn't identifying a ceramic. It wasn't identifying a composite. It wasn't identifying anything. Elena Carter slowly stepped closer. Run molecular spectroscopy. Malik already had. No result. Neutron scan. He shook his head. It absorbs the beam. Ultrasonic mapping. Notification. Around them, the rest of the team had stopped unpacking equipment. Everyone watched. Malik placed his gloved hand against the wall. It shouldn't be possible. What shouldn't? He looked at Elena. The wall is changing. She frowned. What do you mean changing? He held up the scanner. When I point energy at it, its internal structure rearranges itself. Silence. The atoms are moving. A nervous laugh escaped one of the engineers. That's impossible. Malik nodded. I know. He slowly traced the scanner across the surface again. Every time I scan it, it becomes harder to scan. The corridor suddenly felt much quieter. The team spent the next 6 hours exploring only the first deck. The deeper they went, the stranger the ship became. Nothing looked assembled. There were no bolts, no rivets, no weld seams. Entire hallways appeared to have been grown as single continuous pieces. Even door frames merged smoothly into surrounding walls. Mechanical engineer Olivia Brooks stopped beside one of the support columns. This ship doesn't have parts. Elena looked up. What? It's one structure. She knocked gently on the pillar. The floor, the ceiling, the walls, they're all connected. She pulled up a structural scan. If one section takes damage, the stress redistributes across the entire hull. General Hale, monitoring from Earth, frowned through the live video feed. Like reinforced steel? Olivia smiled. No, more like, she searched for the right words. One gigantic bone. Hours later, the team reached engineering, or at least what they believed had once been engineering. The reactor itself was gone. The Dominion had removed it completely. In its place remained a hollow chamber nearly 400 meters tall. Massive conduits stretched outward in every direction like arteries. Power channels disappeared into every deck. Thousands of connection points waited silently. Dr. Isaac Moreno, Earth's leading fusion specialist, stood frozen. He slowly turned in a circle. They didn't remove the circulatory system. Elena looked over. What? They removed the heart. He pointed upward. But they left every artery. Isaac climbed onto one of the platforms and examined an energy conduit. His scanner immediately displayed something unbelievable. Superconducting. Another reading appeared. Room temperature. His breathing stopped. No. He checked again. Still the same. Room temperature superconductors. Thousands of kilometers of them. Humanity had spent 50 years trying to manufacture a few centimeters. The Dominion had used them as plumbing. The discoveries continued. One laboratory contained manufacturing equipment. Most of the important machines had been removed, but their foundations remained. Dr. May Tan examined the floor. Her eyes widened. The machines weren't bolted down. They were grown directly into the ship. Nearby, computer specialist Ethan Ross found the remains of a maintenance terminal. The primary processor had been removed. Only the interface remained. He connected a translator. Nothing happened. Then, the screen lit up. Ancient alien symbols flowed across the display. Wait, Ethan whispered. It's still running. Elena hurried over. I thought they removed the computers. They removed the main intelligence. He smiled nervously. But they left the operating system. Hours became days. The boarding mission expanded. More scientists arrived. More laboratories opened. Every room answered one question and created 10 more. Then came the first truly impossible discovery. Deck 32. Tactical operations. The Dominion had stripped every weapon, every missile launcher, every energy cannon, every targeting array. Nothing dangerous remained, or so they thought. Weapons Analyst Commander Rachel Morgan carefully examined one of the control stations. Power. A technician nodded. Minimal. Can you activate diagnostics? I'll try. The console flickered. Ancient symbols scrolled across the display. Then, the translator finished processing. Rachel leaned closer. Her heartbeat quickened. This, she blinked. This isn't a weapons console. Elena froned. What is it? Rachel slowly looked up. It's the targeting computer. What about it? They removed every gun. Yes. They removed every missile. Yes. They even removed the energy capacitors. Rachel smiled. But they never removed the brain. Silence. Rachel expanded the holographic display. An enormous tactical map appeared. Thousands of calculations updated every second. Trajectory predictions. Threat analysis. Weak point identification. Probability trees. Target prioritization. Intercept solution. It wasn't controlling weapons anymore. Because there were none. But it was still thinking. Still calculating. Still solving combat problems. Commander Rachel whispered almost reverently. This computer can track. She paused. Every object within 200,000 kilometers. General Hale spoke through the comm system. So, Rachel turned toward the camera. So, our best military targeting AI would lose a race against this thing before it finished waking up. Back on Earth, emergency meetings resumed. This time, the mood had completely changed. President Sofia Alvarez stood before the assembly. We have explored less than 8% of the vessel. She displayed dozens of images. The Dominion removed advanced technology. She paused. They accidentally donated advanced engineering. Entire industries were already changing. Metallurgy, power transmission, structural engineering, artificial gravity theory. Every scientific discipline had gained decades of research overnight, and they had barely opened the front door. One minister finally asked the obvious question. If this is what they considered worthless, what does their current technology look like? Nobody answered, because nobody wanted to imagine it. Late that evening, Elena remained aboard the alien ship alone. Most of the team had returned to Earth for rest. She wandered through one of the endless corridors. Something bothered her. The Dominion had stripped the ship carefully. Too carefully. Almost. Professionally. She stopped beside another maintenance panel. Something caught her eye. Tiny engraved symbols. Not warnings. Not serial numbers. Dates. She translated them. Construction date. Service entry. Maintenance cycles. Retirement. Her eyes widened. The ship hadn't served 200 years. It had served 23. Then it had been retired nearly 2 centuries ago. She did the math in her head. 23 years. Retired. Discarded. Like an old truck. Human warships often served over 70 years. Some museums displayed vessels more than 2 centuries old. To the Dominion, a 23-year-old battleship had become junk. She looked around the colossal corridor. Everything suddenly felt different. Not ancient. Not primitive. Simply outdated. By their standards. She whispered to herself, if this is obsolete, then we're standing inside history's most expensive mistake. She didn't realize someone else had just reached exactly the same conclusion. Millions of kilometers away. Au Dominion reconnaissance vessel silently exited hyperspace. Its sensors locked onto the abandoned warship. Within seconds, an encrypted report began racing toward Dominion High Command. Subject: human activity aboard disposal vessel 7, Delta 91. Assessment: unexpected technological progress detected. 3 days after the boarding mission began, the Dominion's reconnaissance report landed on the desk of Fleet Marshal Zareth, commander of the Dominion's 7th Expansion Fleet. He barely looked at it. Another developing species. Another donated ship. Another routine inspection. He expected to read the same conclusion he'd seen dozens of times over the centuries. Recipient civilization unable to operate vessel. Engineering capability insufficient. No strategic concern. Instead, his eyes stopped on one sentence. Human scientists have accessed subsystems previously considered non-operational. He frowned. Impossible. His aide nodded carefully. Our observers confirmed it. They've restored internal diagnostics. They're mapping structural systems. They've activated portions of the tactical network. Zareth actually laughed. Activated? With what? We removed every combat processor. We removed the reactors. We removed every classified module. They're talking to an empty shell. The aide hesitated. Respectfully, Marshal, they don't appear interested in rebuilding our ship. That finally caught Zareth's attention. What? They're studying how it was built. A long silence followed. Then Zareth leaned back in his chair. Strange creatures. They're studying the bones instead of the muscles. He dismissed the report. Continue observation. They'll learn a few engineering tricks. Nothing more. The report disappeared into the Dominion archives. Forgotten. For now. Meanwhile, aboard the abandoned warship, humanity had stopped calling it Disposal Vessel 7, Delta 91. Scientists hated that name. Someone jokingly suggested. Old Ghost. Another preferred. Titan. Eventually, one name stuck. Project Phoenix. Because everyone aboard believed they were watching something dead, slowly preparing to rise again. Dr. Elena Carter stood inside the former Combat Information Center. The room alone was nearly the size of a football stadium. Curved walls surrounded hundreds of silent consoles. Most had been stripped clean, but one section remained untouched. Not because it was hidden, because the Dominion hadn't considered it important. Linguist Daniel Kim stared at glowing symbols. I think this isn't military. Elena walked over. What makes you say that? Daniel enlarged the translation. Instead of targeting commands, it displayed maintenance schedules, crew movement, resource allocation, power efficiency, environmental controls. The entire ship, Daniel whispered, ran itself. Elena smiled. No, it managed itself. She looked around the enormous chamber. Imagine a city where every road, every elevator, every power cable, every repair drone, every door works together. Daniel nodded. It predicts what the crew needs. Exactly. She looked toward the towering ceiling. They didn't build a warship. They built an ecosystem. That single realization changed everything. Until then, human engineers had approached the vessel as thousands of independent systems. Now, they realized every component depended on every other component. Nothing existed alone. Cooling systems strengthened structural supports. Armor redistributed electrical loads. Power conduits acted as data highways. Gravity generators balanced mechanical stress. Even the corridors were part of the engineering. Dr. Olivia Brooks spent an entire week studying one hallway. At the end, she called Elena. You need to see this. Elena arrived carrying a tablet. What happened? Olivia pointed at the floor. Walk. Elena did. Nothing happened. Again. She walked back. Still nothing. Olivia smiled. Now jump. Confused. Elena jumped. The floor rippled. Not visibly, but every sensor detected it. Shockwaves spread throughout the corridor, then vanished. Olivia displayed the data. The deck absorbed 98% of the impact. So imagine artillery. She zoomed out. The entire ship distributes force across its whole frame. Elena started. You're saying one explosion is shared by the entire hull? Olivia nodded. The Dominion didn't build stronger armor. They built armor that refuses to take damage in one place. The discoveries accelerated. Every day produced another impossible breakthrough. Human scientists stopped asking, "What does this system do?" Instead, they asked, "Why was it designed this way?" That simple question produced astonishing answers. The ventilation network, also emergency coolant. The lighting system, also internal communication. The gravity plates, also structural stabilizers. Nothing wasted space. Nothing served only one purpose. Every kilogram performed multiple jobs. Human engineers loved it, because unlike the Dominion, humans had spent centuries surviving with limited resources. Efficiency wasn't unfamiliar. It was instinct. Then, exactly 19 days after Project Phoenix began, engineer Ethan Ross made a discovery that stopped the entire mission. He had been tracing data cables beneath Deck 41. Most terminated and empty sockets where removed computers once sat. One cable didn't. Instead, it disappeared into solid hull material. There shouldn't have been anything there. Curious, he activated a maintenance pulse. Nothing. He increased power. Still nothing. Then, a tiny panel opened silently inside the wall. Everyone froze. It wasn't on any blueprint. It wasn't listed in any maintenance files. It wasn't even connected to the ship's main systems. Inside rested a single crystal sphere, no larger than a basketball, completely black, perfectly smooth. Daniel translated the nearby inscription. His voice trembled. Auxiliary Tactical Corps. Elena Fronad. Tactical. The Dominion removed those. Daniel swallowed. Apparently, they missed one. Within minutes, every senior scientist gathered around the mysterious sphere. No one touched it. Radiation? None. Power? Minimal. Activity? Unknown. Ethan carefully connected an isolated interface cable. Nothing happened. He tried another. Still nothing. Finally, Elena noticed something strange. The socket wasn't electrical. It resembled light. She remembered another laboratory, one containing experimental quantum lasers. "Bring me coherent photon equipment." The team stared. "You think it uses light?" "I think." She smiled. "We've been trying to plug electricity into something that speaks photons." 30 minutes later, the laser aligned perfectly. A beam of blue light entered the crystal. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then, the entire room awakened. Every inactive console lit simultaneously. Ancient holograms burst into existence. Light spread through surrounding corridors. Mechanical systems hummed softly. Across the 5-kilometer vessel, thousands of dormant subsystems came alive. Back on Earth, monitoring stations exploded with alerts. Power consumption increased 4,000%. Gravity fluctuations spread across orbit. General Hale nearly shouted, "What did you activate?" Nobody answered, because everyone aboard Project Phoenix was staring at the crystal. A voice echoed through the chamber. "Calm, mechanical, ancient, auxiliary combat intelligence online." Silence. Then, primary intelligence missing. Command authority unrecognized. The sphere paused, as though thinking, scanning. Every scientist held their breath. Biological operators identified. Another pause. Species. Unknown. Then came the sentence that changed human history. Awaiting new instructions. No alarms. No security lockdown. No hostility. Just waiting. Elena slowly stepped forward. She realized something extraordinary. The Dominion had never intended anyone to find this core. Not because it was hidden, because they assumed no primitive civilization would ever understand the ship well enough to activate it. She looked at the glowing sphere, then quietly said, "My name is Dr. Elena Carter. I think we're going to learn from each other." The crystal pulsed once, almost like a heartbeat. No one spoke. 48 scientists stood frozen around the glowing black sphere. The ancient intelligence had just acknowledged them, not as intruders, not as enemies, simply operators. Dr. Elena Carter took one careful step forward. My name is Dr. Elena Carter. I represent the people of Earth. The crystal pulsed again. Its calm mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. Identity recorded. A holographic symbol appeared above the sphere. Authority status, temporary. Everyone exchanged puzzled looks. Temporary? Daniel Kim quickly translated more alien text appearing around the chamber. It says, the primary command crew never officially decommissioned this tactical core. Elena Fronad. So it thinks it's still on duty. Daniel nodded, and he stopped reading. What? It says, its mission remains incomplete. The room came alive. Dozens of dormant holograms ignited across the walls. For the first time, the scientists saw the ship as its creators once had. A breathtaking, three-dimensional blueprint unfolded in the air. Every deck, every corridor, every maintenance shaft, every armor layer, every sensor node. Thousands of interconnected systems glowed in different colors. Olivia Brooks gasped. This isn't a blueprint. What is it? Elena asked. It's alive. The hologram shifted on its own. Damaged systems highlighted themselves. Inactive components faded. Energy pathways rearranged in real time. The ship wasn't displaying information. It was thinking. Dr. Ethan Ross carefully approached another console. If you're the tactical core, what exactly do you control? The sphere answered instantly. Navigation support, threat prediction, resource allocation, combat optimisation, damage adaptation. Rachel Morgan looked up sharply. Damage adaptation. A new hologram appeared. The ship's internal framework lit up. Sections changed color as simulated explosions struck different locations. The tactical core rerouted stress, redirected power, sealed compartments, rebalanced gravity, moved repair drones, all before the simulated impact even finished. Rachel whispered, "It predicts damage before the damage happens." Back on Earth, General Marcus Hale watched the live feed. He leaned toward President Sofia Alvarez. If that intelligence is telling the truth, this wasn't merely a battleship. It was a battlefield that could think. Over the next several days, the tactical core became an unexpected teacher. It answered questions, not all of them. Certain topics remained locked. Advanced weapons, modern Dominion technology, military encryption. Those areas required command authorization it no longer possessed. But engineering, maintenance, structural optimization, those were unrestricted. Human scientists asked thousands of questions. The core answered patiently, never insulting, never mocking, simply explaining. It did not behave like a person. It behaved like the world's greatest instruction manual. Dr. Malik Hassan soon realized something astonishing. The strange hull material wasn't manufactured. It was cultivated. The tactical core displayed microscopic construction sequences. Tiny crystalline fibers grew layer by layer. Each layer bonded differently depending on its future purpose. Compression, heat, radiation, impact. Every region developed unique properties. Malik stared in disbelief. They don't build armor. They grow it. Elena folded her arms. Can we? The room became silent. Malik slowly smiled. Not yet. He looked at the floating diagrams. But I finally know where to begin. Meanwhile, engineer Isaac Moreno obsessed over the missing reactor. The Dominion had removed every power source. Only empty conduits remained. The tactical core displayed the original specifications. Isaac nearly laughed. There isn't enough fuel in our entire solar system to run this thing. Rachel looked over. So we're stuck. Isaac shook his head. No. He zoomed into the conduits. The reactor is impossible. The plumbing isn't. He suddenly became very quiet. Then his eyes widened. Oh, Elena noticed immediately. What? Isaac smiled. They designed the ship around efficiency. So, what if, instead of copying their reactor, we build one design for ours? Silence. Then Elena's expression changed. Slowly, she smiled. They threw away the engine. Not the engine bay. Isaac nodded. We don't need to build their reactor. We need to build ours. That sentence became the philosophy of Project Phoenix. Never imitate. Adapt. Never copy. Improve. Every department adopted the same approach. The Dominion had designed elegant precision weapons. Humans considered them beautiful, then ignored them. Instead, weapons specialists proposed something absurd. Electromagnetic railguns. General Hale almost laughed. Against alien warships? Commander Rachel Morgan answered confidently. They removed energy cannons. They never imagined someone would install kinetic weapons. But railguns are primitive. Rachel nodded. Exactly. She displayed calculations. No heat bloom. No energy signature. No plasma instability. No exotic ammunition. Just, she smiled. Solid metal moving very, very fast. Elsewhere, the propulsion team reached the same conclusion. Human fusion reactors couldn't power Dominion engines, so they redesigned the engines instead. Months of work followed. Thousands of failed simulations. Hundreds of destroyed prototypes. Then, one afternoon, a test engine ignited inside Lunar Orbital Laboratory 3. Everyone expected modest improvements. Instead, the prototype accelerated beyond every prediction. Scientists watched in stunned silence. Isaac checked the numbers, ran them again, then a third time. He whispered, "Impossible." His assistant looked over. What happened? Isaac slowly turned. The Dominion built engines, assuming unlimited power. He pointed at the display. We built ours, assuming limited power. Everyone stared. Our version is 38% more efficient. The room erupted into cheers. Weeks turned into months. Project Phoenix expanded. Factories opened beneath the moon. Asteroid mines redirected resources. Thousands of engineers joined the effort. Officially, the abandoned alien vessel remained an educational research platform. Unofficially, it was becoming something else entirely. Something no one had intended. Even the tactical corps seemed curious. One day, it asked Elena a question. Clarification requested. She looked toward the crystal. Go ahead. Why are human engineers repeatedly replacing optimal systems with inferior technology? Several scientists laughed. Elena smiled. Because our technology isn't inferior. The core remained silent. She walked toward the holographic display. You calculate using today's numbers. We calculate using tomorrow's possibilities. She pointed at the half-completed reactor. Our reactor is weaker. Correct. Our weapons are simpler. Correct. Our computers are slower. Correct. She folded her arms. But every one of them can be built. The crystal processed that statement for nearly 8 seconds, longer than anyone had ever seen. Finally, it replied, Analysis. Human engineering philosophy prioritizes scalability over perfection. Elena smiled. Exactly. The crystal pulsed again. Then, for the first time, its voice sounded almost thoughtful. This variable was absent from Dominion design assumptions. Nearly 8 months after Project Phoenix began, the impossible happened. Power flowed through the alien vessel once more. Not Dominion power. Human power. Fusion reactors buried deep inside, the engineering decks awakened. Lights spread deck by deck. Gravity stabilized. Life support systems activated. Thousands of dormant mechanisms stirred. Across 5 kilometers of forgotten warship, humanity had given a dead giant a new heart. Applause echoed through the command center. Scientists embraced one another. Some openly cried. Dr. Elena Carter simply stood in silence, watching lights fill the endless corridors. The tactical core broke the silence. Primary propulsion systems unavailable. Secondary propulsion systems unavailable. Human replacement systems. A brief pause. Accepted. Then, for the first time in over 2 centuries, the ancient warship officially changed status. Across every console, one line appeared. Vessel status. Operational. More than 60 light-years away. Inside Dominion High Command, a priority alert suddenly flashed crimson. Fleet Marshal Zareth frowned. What now? An officer looked up from his console. His face had lost all color. Marshal, the disposal vessel, just came back online. The room fell completely silent. 8 months after Project Phoenix began, the old Dominion warship was alive again. But only on paper. Its lights worked. Its gravity systems worked. Life support hummed quietly through every deck. Yet no one aboard believed they had restored the vessel. They had done something far stranger. They had begun creating a completely different ship. Inside an alien shell, Dr. Elena Carter stood on the primary command deck, staring at the holographic blueprint floating before her. The tactical core highlighted the vessel in 2 colors. Blue represented original Dominion systems. Green represented human replacements. At first, almost everything had been blue. Now, green was spreading. Every week, more of the ancient ship became human. Commander Rachel Morgan walked onto the bridge, carrying another engineering report. You should see this. Elena looked up. What exploded this time? Rachel laughed. Nothing. That's the miracle. She projected the report. Human railgun battery, Mk4. Maximum velocity, 31 kilometers per second. Elena blinked. That's impossible. Rachel grinned. It was until your materials team figured out how to grow magnetic lattice rails using the Dominion alloy. She zoomed into the weapon design. The barrel no longer melts. The recoil is absorbed by the ship's structural skeleton. And she paused dramatically. We don't need explosive shells anymore. What are we firing? Rachel placed a small gray cylinder on the table. It looked almost disappointingly ordinary. A tungsten slug. Elena frowned. That's it. Rachel smiled wider. At 31 kilometers per second, that's all we'll ever need. Across the engineering decks, Dr. Isaac Moreno watched technicians install humanity's newest fusion reactors. They were ugly. Compared to Dominion technology, they looked crude. Pipes crossed openly through maintenance corridors. Cooling systems occupied entire compartments. Nothing looked elegant. A young engineer apologized. I'm sorry they're so bulky. Isaac shook his head. They're beautiful. The engineer looked confused. Isaac rested a hand on the reactor housing. Do you know why? No, because I understand every bolt. He smiled. If something breaks, we can fix it. He looked upward toward the empty chamber where the Dominion reactor had once rested. Their machines are masterpieces. Ours are survivors. Meanwhile, the tactical core continued watching humanity with growing fascination. It spent centuries assisting Dominion commanders. Every decision had followed predictable logic. Maximum efficiency, perfect precision, minimal waste. Humans ignored all 3. One afternoon, the core addressed Elena. Inquiry. She looked up from her tablet. Go ahead. Why have human engineers intentionally reduced overall system elegance by 17%? Several nearby scientists burst into laughter. Elena smiled. You've been measuring elegance? Affirmative. She folded her arms. And reliability? A brief pause. Reliability increased by 41%. And repair time? Reduced by 62%. She nodded. There's your answer. The core remained silent. Elena continued. If perfection breaks, it's no longer perfect. She tapped one of the reactor diagrams. We expect failure, so we designed for it. Another unusually long pause. Finally, the core replied. Dominion engineering assumes components will never fail. Elena smiled. Human engineering assumes they always will. The AI stored the statement, unknown to anyone aboard. It marked that sentence as strategically significant. 9 months into Project Phoenix, the ship received its first official name. The United Earth Assembly unanimously approved it. Gone was the Dominion designation. Gone was the temporary project title. Across the freshly painted hull, new letters appeared. UE's Resolute. The old Dominion insignia vanished beneath layers of deep blue alloy coating. In its place, a silver Earth emblem stretched across the bow. For many workers, painting over the alien military symbols felt strangely emotional. One technician stepped back and smiled. It finally belongs to us. Not everyone agreed. Far away, inside Dominion space, Fleet Marshal Zareth stared at surveillance images. The disposal vessel no longer looked abandoned. Construction drones surrounded it. Orbital shipyards buzzed with activity. Human cargo vessels arrived daily. The old battleship had become the center of Earth's entire industrial economy. An officer approached quietly. Marshal, our analysts believe the humans intend to complete the restoration. Zareth shook his head. No, they can't. Why not? They don't possess the necessary technology. The officer hesitated. Then, what are they building? Zareth looked at the latest images. Thousands of external modifications. Entire weapon housings replaced. Engine sections completely redesigned. New sensor arrays. Different armor geometry. Nothing matched Dominion engineering doctrine anymore. For the first time, he wasn't sure. Back aboard the Resolute, Captain Nathan Briggs arrived, former commander of Earth's Deep Fleet. 49 years old, calm, reserved, a veteran of countless rescue missions beyond Mars. Unlike most military commanders, he had never fought a real war, because humanity had never faced one. When he first stepped onto the bridge, he remained silent for nearly a full minute. Finally, he asked one question. Can she fly? Dr. Isaac Moreno smiled. Let's find out. The first propulsion test took place beyond lunar orbit. Every major government watched live. Every Dominion listening station watched as well. Captain Briggs settled into the command chair. Engineering. Reactors stable. Navigation. Course plotted. Weapons. Safe. Tactical core. The ancient AI answered immediately. Human propulsion systems calibrated. Probability of catastrophic failure. The bridge became quiet. Everyone waited. 12%. Captain Briggs laughed. I've flown vers. The crew chuckled nervously. Briggs looked forward. Helm. 1/4 thrust. The engines awakened. Unlike Dominion drives, human fusion engines didn't hum softly. They roared. The entire ship vibrated. A deep thunder echoed through every deck. Outside, blue-white exhaust erupted from the stern. The 5-kilometer warship began moving. Slowly at first, then faster. Much faster. Within seconds, the Resolute exceeded the speed of every human spacecraft ever built. Cheers erupted across mission control. Isaac stared at the telemetry. Increased to 50%. Briggs nodded. Do it. Acceleration doubled, then tripled. Crew members felt gravity press them gently into their seats. The tactical core announced calmly. Current acceleration exceeds original Dominion safety recommendations. Briggs smiled. Good. Let's keep going. At 70% power, every alarm inside Dominion surveillance stations activated. Operators stared in disbelief. No. One analyst whispered, "They're using fusion." Another nodded. Yes, but they're accelerating faster than our original engines. The room became silent. That wasn't supposed to happen. Dominion engineers had assumed fusion reactors would never provide sufficient power. They had never imagined someone would redesign the engines. Instead of chasing a better reactor, back aboard the Resolute, Captain Briggs looked at the tactical display. The ship responded beautifully, turning faster, stopping shorter, accelerating harder. Human engineers had sacrificed maximum theoretical speed for incredible maneuverability. The tactical core processed millions of calculations. Finally, it spoke. Its voice sounded almost respectful. Performance analysis complete. Everyone looked toward the crystal interface. Current propulsion efficiency exceeds original design parameters by a brief pause. 22%. Silence filled the bridge. Dr. Elena Carter slowly turned. Did you say exceeds? Affirmative. You mean we improved it? Another pause. Correction. Everyone leaned forward. Human engineering has optimized this vessel for a combat philosophy never anticipated by Dominion military doctrine. Captain Briggs smiled. What combat philosophy? The tactical core answered immediately. Controlled unpredictability. No one spoke, because everyone instinctively knew it was right. 2 days later, a priority transmission reached Earth. It came directly from Fleet Marshal Zareth. His expression remained calm, professional, but his voice had lost the quiet confidence it once carried. To the government of Earth, it has come to our attention that the donated vessel has exceeded the limits of educational restoration. We request immediate inspection. Failure to comply may result in reclamation under Dominion Military Disposal Statute 17. President Sofia Alvarez listened carefully, then asked one simple question. Did they just ask, or did they threaten? General Marcus Hale smiled grimly. They haven't decided yet. Across the room, Dr. Elena Carter looked at the hologram of the Resolute, then quietly whispered, "They're about to." The Dominion called it an inspection fleet. Humanity called it an invasion. The transmission arrived exactly 48 hours after President Sofia Alvarez declined Fleet Marshal Zareth's request. There were no insults, no dramatic threats, only cold bureaucratic language. Inspection Fleet 9 has been authorized to recover Disposal Vessel 7 Delta 91 pending investigation in an unauthorized military reconstruction. General Marcus Hale read the message twice, then looked at Elena Carter. They've already decided. She nodded. This was never a request. 3 days later, deep space telescopes detected 6 hyperspace ruptures beyond Neptune. Then, a 7th. One by one, Dominion warships emerged into normal space. Unlike the ancient vessel orbiting Earth, these ships looked alive. Their armor shimmered like liquid metal. Engine wakes distorted the surrounding stars. Weapons rotated automatically toward every nearby object, even from billions of kilometers away. Humanity understood one thing. These were not museum pieces. These were the Dominion's modern navy. Mission control became silent. Every analyst stared at the tactical display. Captain Nathan Briggs finally spoke. So, he smiled slightly. That's what current technology looks like. Fleet Marshal Zareth stood aboard the flagship Iron Judgment. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He genuinely believed this situation could end peacefully. After all, what could humanity possibly have built in less than a year? At worst, some crude imitation, an embarrassing experiment. The inspection would end. The old ship would return home. Everyone would move on. He addressed his officers. Remember, this species has never fought an interstellar war. They will posture. They will negotiate. They will surrender. Every officer nodded. No one questioned him. No one had reason to. The Dominion had never lost a reclamation mission. Not once. Back on Earth, President Alvarez convened an emergency council. Military leaders filled the chamber. Scientists stood beside admirals. Economists, governors, even civilian representatives attended. The question was simple. Do they surrender the ship or prepare for war? Arguments erupted immediately. They outnumber us. They outgun us. We're not ready. Returning the vessel costs us nothing. It isn't worth risking humanity. Across the room, Elena Carter quickly listened. When the debate finally paused, she stood. You're asking the wrong question. Everyone looked toward her. She activated a hologram. The Resolute appeared above the conference table. Blue lines represented original Dominion systems. Green represented human systems. Now, almost 70% of the ship glowed green. This, she said softly, isn't their ship anymore. Silence. She zoomed deeper. Human reactors. Human weapons. Human software. Human life support. Human manufacturing. Human communications. Human navigation. Only the structural frame remained Dominion. If we surrender this vessel, she looked around the chamber. We're surrendering 10 months of humanity's future. No one argued, because everyone knew she was right. The final vote ended just before midnight. By a narrow margin, humanity refused. Fleet Marshal Zareth received the answer 2 hours later. He sighed. Unfortunate. His first officer asked. Orders. Zareth looked toward the glowing image of Earth. Proceed with inspection. If they interfere... He paused. Disable the vessel. Nothing more. He genuinely wanted to avoid bloodshed. Aboard the UES Resolute, Captain Briggs gathered his officers. The bridge had transformed dramatically over the past months. Dominion control stations still existed, but almost every screen now displayed human software. The tactical core occupied the center of the room. Its crystal shimmered calmly. Briggs looked around the bridge. No speeches. No heroics. If they fire, we survive. If they don't, we don't start anything. Commander Rachel Morgan nodded. Weapons standing by. Isaac Moreno checked the reactors. Power stable. Navigation confirmed course. Life support. Communications. Everything ready. Finally, Briggs turned toward the tactical core. Assessment. The crystal glowed softly. Dominion fleet composition identified. A hologram appeared. 7 enemy vessels. 1 command cruiser. 4 heavy escorts. 2 electronic warfare ships. Threat probabilities flowed across the display. Then, another line appeared. Estimated victory probability. Current configuration, 23.6%. The bridge became quiet. Someone whispered, "That's lower than expected." The tactical core continued. Probability assuming standard Dominion tactics. The number changed. 61.8%. Captain Briggs smiled. So, they're predictable. The AI answered immediately. Dominion doctrine has remained largely unchanged for 234 standard years. Elena folded her arms. They've been winning for so long. They stopped adapting. The tactical core processed that statement. Conclusion supported. As the fleet approached Mars, something unexpected happened. One of the Dominion electronic warfare ships began scanning the Resolute. Every sensor, every frequency, every communication channel. They expected primitive encryption. Instead, their scanners became confused because nothing aboard the Resolute followed Dominion standards anymore. Human software constantly rewrote itself. Routing changed every few seconds. Signal frequencies shifted unpredictably. Encryption keys regenerated continuously. The Dominion operator frowned. I'm losing synchronization. His supervisor looked over. Ow, I don't know. He hesitated. It's messy. The supervisor scoffed. Primitive. The operator slowly shook his head. No, it isn't primitive. He searched for the word. Chaotic. Back aboard the Resolute. Ethan Ross smiled as he watched the interception attempts fail. They're trying to map our systems. Rachel looked over. Can they? Ethan laughed. They can't map something that keeps changing itself. Human cybersecurity had evolved differently from Dominion philosophy. Dominion networks relied on perfection. Human networks assumed intrusion. Every system aboard the Resolute expected to be attacked. So every system constantly moved. The tactical core quietly observed. Another note appeared inside its memory. Human strategy observation. Stability is not always strength. Meanwhile, Fleet Marshal Zareth reviewed fresh intelligence. One report caught his attention. Human propulsion output exceeds predicted values. Another, human electronic architecture incompatible with Dominion intrusion protocols. Another, weapon housings do not match any known Dominion design. He frowned. Show me the visual feed. The hologram enlarged. For the first time, he studied the human vessel carefully. His expression slowly changed. The graceful Dominion lines were gone. Human armor plates reinforced vulnerable areas. Engine housings had expanded. Weapon ports multiplied. The sleek silhouette had become predatory, less elegant, far more dangerous. His chief engineer quietly spoke. Marshal, they've ignored every design recommendation. Zareth nodded slowly. I know. Another pause. They've also ignored every limitation. As the two fleets closed the distance, the tactical core suddenly interrupted bridge operations. Its crystal pulsed brighter than ever before. Historical database access granted. Everyone turned. What? Ancient files appeared. Combat recording. Engineering reports. Battle analyses. They had been locked for centuries. Now, the AI had unlocked them. Elena looked surprised. Why now? The crystal answered calmly. Assessment updated. Probability of imminent combat exceeds operational threshold. Captain Briggs stepped closer. What are you saying? The AI's next words sent a chill through every person on the bridge. I was created to help my crew survive. A brief pause. You are now my crew. No one spoke, not even Elena. For nearly a year, they had treated the tactical core like an ancient machine. In that single sentence, it stopped feeling like one. Far ahead, the Dominion fleet entered Earth's orbital boundary. Fleet Marshal Zareth transmitted one final message. Human vessel, power down. Prepare for inspection. Captain Briggs listened quietly, then looked toward Elena. She smiled faintly. Your ship. He nodded. Open the channel. This is Captain Nathan Briggs of the United Earth ship Resolute. He glanced once at the glowing tactical core, then answered. We respectfully decline. The transmission ended. On both ships, combat allait activated simultaneously. The first battle between humanity and the Dominion was seconds away. Silence filled the bridge of the UES Resolute. Captain Nathan Briggs' refusal had lasted only 4 words. We respectfully decline. Yet everyone aboard understood what those words meant. There would be no more negotiations, no more diplomacy. The next conversation would be spoken in weapons fire. Aboard the Dominion flagship Iron Judgment, Fleet Marshal Zareth watched the human transmission end. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. They chose poorly. His communications officer looked up. "Marshal, transmit engagement authorization." The officer hesitated. "Full combat." Zareth shook his head. "No. Disable propulsion. Disable weapons. Board the vessel. I want the crew alive." He still believed this would be easy. After all, the Resolute was built around a 2-century-old hull. Even with modifications, how dangerous could it possibly be? On the Resolute, the tactical corps interrupted the tension. Ennemi fleet altering formation. A hologram appeared above the command deck. 7 Dominion vessels shifted with elegant precision. Each ship moved exactly where doctrine demanded. Perfect spacing, perfect firing angles, perfect overlapping fields of fire. Commander Rachel Morgan studied the formation. "They're surrounding us." The AI answered. "Negative." Everyone looked toward the crystal. "They are surrounding." A brief pause. "Where they predict we will remain." Captain Briggs smiled. "And we're not going to stay there." The tactical corps pulsed. Recommendation accepted. The Dominion fleet transmitted one final warning. "Power down immediately. Failure to comply will result in non-lethal force." Captain Briggs didn't answer. Instead, he calmly spoke one word. "Helm." The pilot looked up. "Sir." "Begin pattern Raven." The bridge crew exchanged smiles. Months earlier, human tacticians had abandoned traditional military formations. They knew they could never outgun the Dominion, so they focused on something else. Movement. Unpredictability. Instead of memorizing battle formations, every pilot learned dozens of constantly changing maneuver patterns named after birds. No alien intelligence had ever seen them. The Dominion opened fire, not with devastating force, just enough to disable. A brilliant blue energy beam crossed the darkness. It should have struck the Resolute squarely amidships. Instead, the human vessel wasn't there anymore. Less than half a second before impact, the Resolute twisted. Not much, barely 20 meters. The beam sailed harmlessly past. On the Iron Judgment, targeting officers frowned. Minor correction. Fire again. A second beam. Another miss. Third beam. Miss. Fourth. Miss. The bridge grew quiet. One officer whispered, "Ow!" Captain Briggs wasn't steering manually. Neither was the pilot. The tactical corps predicted every incoming shot, not by reacting, by anticipating. Millions of calculations every second. Enemy reactor output, weapon charging cycles, thermal expansion, power fluctuations, historical firing doctrine. The AI knew where the Dominion ships intended to fire before their captains did. Commander Rachel Morgan finally looked toward Briggs. "They've fired 4 times." He nodded. "Your turn." Rachel smiled. Weapons free. Deep inside the ship, massive electromagnetic rails awakened. Human-built, human-powered, human-designed. Unlike Dominion plasma cannons, there was no glowing energy, no charging sphere, no visible warning, only an enormous magnetic pulse. Then, 32 tungsten projectiles disappeared into space. Not exploded, not launched, simply gone. At 31 kilometers per second, the slugs crossed the battlefield almost instantly. The Dominion didn't even realize they had been attacked until alarms erupted. One escort cruiser shuddered violently. Its starboard sensor array exploded into fragments. Another ship lost half its communications mast. A third spun unexpectedly as maneuvering thrusters vanished. Fleet Marshal Zareth stared. What happened? No one answered. because Dominion sensors had never detected the attack. There had been no energy signature, no plasma bloom, no missile launch, nothing, only damage. His chief tactical officer finally whispered, "Kinetic weapons." Zareth frowned. "They're using railguns?" The officer nodded slowly. "But they're impossible to intercept." On the Resolute, Rachel watched the results. "We barely scratched them." Captain Briggs nodded. "I wasn't aiming to hurt them." She looked over. "What?" "I wanted them confused." The tactical corps suddenly spoke. Enemy tactical cohesion reduced by 21%. Confusion detected across command network. Briggs smiled. "Good. Now they stop following doctrine." Fleet Marshal Zareth quickly regained control. "All vessels. Expand engagement radius. Maintain distance. Target propulsion." 7 ships obeyed immediately. They spread outward, creating overlapping firing lanes. Beautiful. Disciplined. Exactly as the Dominion Naval Academy had taught for centuries. The tactical corps quietly observed, then displayed a single sentence. Prediction. Enemy response matches historical doctrine. Captain Briggs chuckled. "They're doing exactly what you expected." Affirmative. The Resolute accelerated. Hard. Not away from the Dominion fleet. Toward it. Several bridge officers instinctively looked at Briggs. "Sir, we're closing." He nodded. "They have longer range." "So, we remove the range." The Resolute surged forward. Fusion engines roared. The Dominion ships responded immediately. Energy weapons charged. Target locks formed. But every firing solution assumed the human vessel would behave rationally. Maintain distance. Trade fire. Retreat if overwhelmed. Instead, the Resolute charged directly into the center of the formation. Fleet Marshal Zareth stood abruptly. "No, they wouldn't." His tactical officer looked confused. They're entering minimum engagement distance." Zareth's expression darkened. "Why?" The answer arrived seconds later. Dominion heavy weapons couldn't depress enough to fire safely. Not with friendly ships surrounding the target. Their own formation protected the Resolute. Humanity had turned Dominion discipline into a weakness. Captain Briggs smiled. "Exactly where we wanted to be." Commander Rachel Morgan didn't hesitate. "All batteries. Fire." 32 railguns thundered again. This time, the tactical corps selected different targets. Not reactors, not bridges, not crew compartments, maneuvering systems, sensor clusters, shield projectors, weapon tracking arrays. Each tungsten slug struck with surgical precision. One Dominion cruiser suddenly lost artificial gravity. Another spun helplessly after its maneuvering fin shattered. A third lost targeting control entirely. Within 90 seconds, 3 of the 7 Dominion ships had become nearly blind. Panic spread through the Dominion command network. Not because they were losing, because nothing made sense. Every prediction failed. Every tactical model collapsed. The humans ignored every accepted rule of space combat. They willingly entered dangerous positions, accepted impossible risks, used primitive weapons, modified obsolete technology. Fleet Marshal Zareth finally understood. The humans weren't fighting like the Dominion. They weren't fighting like anyone. The tactical corps processed the evolving battlefield. For centuries, it had served commanders who prized perfect order. Now, it observed Captain Briggs deliberately creating chaos. Against every Dominion principle, the strategy was working. The crystal pulsed. A private note appeared deep within its memory archive. Combat doctrine révision. Human tactical behavior cannot be predicted through conventional optimization. Recommendation: never assume a human commander seeks the mathematically safest solution. Captain Briggs looked calmly across the battlefield. 3 enemy ships were crippled, 4 remained fully combat capable. The battle was only beginning. Then suddenly, a warning echoed across the bridge. Alert! Unknown hyperspace signatures detected. Everyone froze. Rachel looked up sharply. More Dominion ships? The tactical corps scanned again. Its voice became unusually serious. Negative. A pause. Larger. The main view screen zoomed toward deep space. The stars themselves began to distort. Something enormous was emerging from hyperspace. Every eye on the bridge fixed on the tactical display. The stars ahead twisted violently as space itself seemed to fold inward. One hyperspace rupture, then another, and another. Captain Briggs watched silently as new contacts poured onto the screen. The tactical corps completed its analysis almost instantly. 8 additional Dominion warships detected. The bridge fell silent. Commander Rachel Morgan slowly counted the icons. That's... She swallowed. 15 ships. Fleet Marshal Zareth hadn't called for reinforcements. Someone much higher in the Dominion hierarchy had made that decision. Nearly 4 light years away, inside the Dominion High Command, Supreme Defense Minister Vaylor stood before a massive holographic display. He had watched the battle from the beginning, watched 3 modern Dominion warships lose critical systems to what should have been an obsolete museum piece. His expression remained calm, but every admiral in the room understood the truth. This was no longer about recovering discarded military property. It was about preserving the Dominion's reputation. Vaylor looked toward Fleet Marshal Zareth's live transmission. You underestimated them. Zareth lowered his head. Yes, Minister. You believe they restored an old ship. Another pause. They created something new. Zareth nodded. They fight differently. Vaylor folded his hands behind his back. That is precisely what concerns me. Back aboard the Resolute, General Marcus Hale's voice came through the secure communication channel from Earth. Captain, we're detecting another fleet entering the system. Briggs answered calmly. We know. A heavy silence followed. Then President Sofia Alvarez spoke. You have permission to withdraw. The bridge remained quiet. Briggs looked toward Dr. Elena Carter. She stared at the tactical map. 15 enemy ships. 1 human warship. The logical decision was obvious. Retreat. Save the ship. Fight another day. But something about the tactical display bothered her. She stepped toward the tactical core. Run probability analysis. The crystal pulsed. Several numbers appeared. Retreat success, 84%. Earth survival, 18%. Everyone stared. Rachel broke the silence. They'll bypass us. The tactical core confirmed. Dominion doctrine prioritizes elimination of strategic infrastructure after hostile resistance. General Hale's voice became grim. If you leave, they'll attack Earth. Captain Briggs leaned back slowly. So retreat isn't an option. No, Elena quietly whispered. It never was. Fleet Marshal Zareth finally received direct command authority from High Command. His orders contained only one sentence. Destroy the vessel. He read it twice, then closed the transmission. He had hoped to avoid this. Not anymore. Charge all primary weapons. Across 15 Dominion warships, energy began gathering. Brilliant blue light illuminated the darkness. This time, they weren't trying to disable the Resolute. They intended to erase it. The tactical core reacted immediately. Every display on the bridge changed color. Warning. Multiple capital weapon locks detected. Captain Briggs stood. Helm. Pattern Raven is over. The pilot looked back. Sir, Briggs smiled. Time for Pattern Wolf. Several younger officers grinned. Unlike Raven, Pattern Wolf had never been tested outside simulations. It was considered far too aggressive. Dr. Elena Carter looked toward Briggs. You really think it'll work? Briggs answered honestly. I have absolutely no idea. The bridge laughed, only for a second. Then everyone returned to work. The Dominion fired. 15 warships released enough energy to vaporize a small moon. The darkness exploded into blue-white light. Even observers on Earth could see the flash. News channels around the world fell silent. Billions watched, expecting humanity's only warship to disappear. Instead, the light cleared. The Resolute was gone. Fleet Marshal Zareth frowned. Where? No answer came, because Dominion sensors had temporarily blinded themselves with their own weapons. The Tactical Corps had predicted exactly that. Captain Briggs had ordered maximum thrust 0.2 of a second before the enemy fired. Instead of dodging sideways, the Resolute accelerated directly beneath the converging beams. The overlapping energy blasts collided with one another. Several Dominion ships temporarily lost sensor resolution. For 6 precious seconds, their own fleet couldn't see. 6 seconds. For most commanders, meaningless. For Captain Briggs, an eternity. Rachel, weapons free. 32 railguns fired together. This time, not at ships, at the battlefield itself. Hundreds of tungsten projectiles scattered through space in carefully calculated patterns. Fleet Marshal Zareth stared in confusion. What are they shooting at? His tactical officer zoomed in. Nothing. Empty space. The slugs continued drifting. No explosions. No impacts. Completely pointless. Or so it seemed. The Tactical Corps calmly announced. Phase 1 complete. Elena smiled. They still don't understand. Commander Rachel nodded. They're about to. Minutes later, the Dominion fleet resumed pursuit. Exactly as Briggs expected. They accelerated through the same region of space. Then alarms erupted across every Dominion bridge. High-speed warning systems activated. Thousands of tungsten slugs, left drifting silently through space, became deadly minefields. At relative combat velocities, each slug struck with catastrophic force. One cruiser lost its forward sensor dome. Another suffered engine damage. A third shredded 2 maneuvering fins before emergency braking systems activated. Fleet Marshal Zareth slammed a fist onto his command console. They turned debris into weapons. His chief engineer whispered, No, they turned our own speed against us. Aboard the Resolute, even the Tactical Corps sounded impressed. Combat analysis updated. Human tactical innovation exceeds Dominion predictive models. Captain Briggs looked toward the crystal. You've been studying us. Affirmative. And a brief pause. The ancient AI answered with absolute certainty. Dominion commanders seek perfect battles. Another pause. Human commanders create impossible ones. For the first time, Captain Briggs laughed in the middle of combat. I'll take that as a compliment. Far behind them, Earth watched the battle unfold. People who understood nothing about military tactics still sensed something extraordinary. Humanity wasn't surviving because it possessed better technology. It was surviving because it kept inventing solutions that no one expected. The Dominion had built magnificent machines. Humans had built something else. A warship that thought differently. A crew that fought differently. Together, they had become exactly what the Dominion had accidentally created. Not their greatest weapon, their greatest mistake. The battlefield had changed. When a fight began, the Dominion believed they were reclaiming obsolete military property. Now, 15 modern warships floated in broken formation. 4 had lost propulsion. 3 had crippled sensor arrays. 2 had been forced completely out of combat. And yet, the Dominion still possessed overwhelming firepower. Fleet Marshal Zareth knew it. Captain Briggs knew it. Everyone knew the next few minutes would decide the future of Earth. Aboard the Iron Judgment, Fleet Marshal Zareth finally abandoned 2 centuries of Dominion doctrine. All ships, he said quietly, break formation. Every bridge officer turned toward him in surprise. Marshal, you heard me. No formation. No fighting patterns. No doctrine. Fight them as individuals. For the first time in his military career, Zareth admitted something to himself. Humanity had already defeated the Dominion's tactics. If they're going to win, they would have to think like humans. On the Resolute, the tactical corps instantly noticed the change. Its holographic battlefield shifted. Enemy movements became erratic, less efficient, less coordinated. Captain Briggs smiled. They're learning. The AI answered immediately. Affirmative. Enemy adaptability increasing. Rachel Morgan looked toward Briggs. So our advantage disappears. Briggs slowly shook his head. No, our first advantage disappears. Dr. Elena Carter suddenly stepped forward. I think I know what they'll do next. Everyone looked at her. They've stopped trusting their doctrine. She pointed toward the tactical map. So now, they'll trust their technology. Fleet Marshal Zareth did exactly that. Across the Dominion fleet, every surviving ship activated synchronized combat intelligence. Unlike the ancient tactical corps aboard the Resolute, these were modern battlefield AIs. Thousands of processors linked together, sharing targeting data, predicting human movements, creating a perfect combat network. Within seconds, the Dominion regained control of the battle. Warning alarms echoed across the Resolute. Enemy accuracy climbed dramatically. One energy beam skimmed the hull. Another vaporized an antenna array. The third struck the port armor. The ship shook violently. For the first time, the Resolute had been hit. Damage reports flooded the bridge. Port armor breached. Deck 12 decompression. Railgun 7 offline. Captain Briggs never raised his voice. Seal the compartment. Reroute power. Continue firing. The crew moved with remarkable calm. Months of impossible engineering, weeks of brutal training, had prepared them for exactly this moment. Deep inside the ship, repair teams sprinted through smoke-filled corridors. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut. Fire suppression foam flooded damaged compartments. Human systems worked exactly as intended. Not perfectly, but reliably. Engineer Isaac Moreno watched technicians replace an entire damaged power relay. Time required? 3 minutes. He smiled. If this were Dominion equipment, he muttered, the battle would already be over. On the bridge, the tactical corps suddenly projected an unfamiliar symbol. Dervina Carter Froned. What is that? The crystal answered. Historical Emergency Protocol. Another hologram appeared. An old Dominion combat maneuver. Never used. Never activated. Because Dominion commanders considered it too dangerous. Captain Briggs studied the display. What does it do? The AI answered. Probability of vessel survival. A pause. Unknown. Rachel blinked. That's helpful. The crystal continued. Probability of enemy tactical collapse. Another pause. 89%. The bridge became silent. Captain Briggs looked toward Elena. You built this ship. What would you do? She stared at the ancient maneuver, then slowly smiled. I wouldn't fly it the way they designed. She walked toward the hologram. We've been making that mistake all battle. She began changing the flight path, simplifying it, removing elegant curves, replacing them with brutal acceleration burns. The tactical corps processed the changes. For nearly 10 seconds, nothing happened. Finally, its voice returned. For the first time, there was unmistakable admiration in its tone. Modification accepted. Human adaptation improves maneuver viability by 43%. Captain Briggs stood. Helm, you heard the lady. The Resolute accelerated. Not around the Dominion fleet. Not through it. Straight at the flagship. Fleet Marshal Zaretha's eyes widened. They're targeting us. Every Dominion ship immediately turned to defend the Iron Judgment. Exactly as Briggs expected, the tactical corps calmly counted. 7, 8, 9 weapon locks. Captain Briggs smiled. Perfect. Now, the pilot slammed the controls. Instead of continuing forward, the Resolute executed the most violent turn any ship that size had ever attempted. Human fusion engine screamed. Artificial gravity compensators strained to their limits. Every crew member felt crushing acceleration. Warning alarms filled every deck. Outside, the 5-kilometer warship pivoted almost 90 degrees. Impossible. Dominion targeting computers couldn't process it quickly enough. Their firing solutions collapsed simultaneously. Energy beams crossed harmlessly through empty space. Several Dominion ships narrowly avoided for several long seconds. No one aboard the HFY Resolute moved. The Dominion fleet was gone. Only fading hyperspace signatures remained where 15 warships had stood moments before. The bridge was eerily quiet. Then, somewhere in the back of the command deck, a young technician let out a shaky laugh. Another crew member clapped. Someone else cheered. Within seconds, the bridge erupted. Men and women hugged each other. Engineers who had spent nearly a year sleeping beside reactors embraced weapons officers covered in grease and soot. Some laughed. Some cried. Others simply collapsed into their chairs, too exhausted to celebrate. Captain Nathan Briggs remained standing at the center of the bridge. He slowly removed his headset and looked around at his crew. We're alive. It wasn't a victory speech. It was simply the truth. Back on Earth, Mission Control received confirmation that the Dominion fleet had entered hyperspace. For nearly 5 seconds, no one reacted. Then the room exploded. Scientists who had argued over equations months earlier were suddenly hugging military officers. Controllers slammed their fists onto desks in celebration. Someone shouted, "They're leaving." Another voice answered, "We did it." Outside, the news spread across the planet faster than any headline in history. The Dominion retreats. Earth stands unconquered. Human warship defends the solar system. In every city, people poured into the streets. Car horns echoed through crowded avenues. Church bells rang. Mosques filled with prayers of gratitude. Children waved homemade Earth flags. For one night, the entire planet celebrated as one people. 3 days later, the first Dominion transmission arrived. This time, it wasn't a threat. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't even sent by Fleet Marshal Zareth. Instead, the message came directly from the Dominion High Council. Every television, every satellite, every communications network on Earth carried it live. A silver-haired alien stepped before the camera. His robes marked him as one of the Dominion's oldest political leaders. He bowed his head, a gesture no Dominion official had ever offered another civilization. "My name is Chancellor Akon. I speak on behalf of the Dominion High Council." He paused. "For 2 centuries, we believe the vessel transferred to your world possessed only historical value. We were—" Another pause. "Mistaken." Across Earth, billions listened in complete silence. The Dominion acknowledges the sovereign ownership of the vessel now designated. He looked at the translated document. The United Earth Ship Resolute. The events within your solar system have demonstrated a truth our civilization has neglected. He lifted his eyes toward the camera. Technology alone does not determine strength. Another pause. Imagination does. Inside the assembly hall in Geneva, President Sofia Alvarez watched the transmission beside Dr. Elena Carter. Neither woman smiled. "Not yet," the Chancellor continued. "The Dominion, therefore, recognizes humanity as an independent interstellar civilization. Mankind shall no longer be classified as a developing species. Instead, A new title appeared across every translated screen. Founding status granted. Murmurs filled the assembly. Even Elena looked surprised. General Hale leaned toward the president. I've never heard that classification before. Neither had anyone else. The chancellor explained. There exist civilizations that rise through conquest, others through wealth, others through age. He looked directly into the camera. And there are those whose greatest strength lies in creating possibilities no one else imagined. The Dominion believes humanity belongs among the last. The official declaration contains something even more remarkable. The Dominion wasn't asking for the old warship back. Instead, they offered something unprecedented. An exchange, scientific cooperation, trade routes, navigation chats, material science archives, access to hundreds of peaceful member worlds. Not because they feared humanity, but because they finally respected them. Later that evening, Fleet Marshal Zareth requested a private conversation with Captain Briggs. The transmission opened. Neither man spoke for several seconds. Finally, Zareth broke the silence. When I first arrived, I believed your people were reckless. Captain Briggs smiled faintly. Were we wrong? No. Zareth surprised him. You are reckless. Another pause. But I now understand. That recklessness, guided by intelligence, is called courage. Briggs chuckled. I'll remember that. The old marshal looked away briefly, then spoke one final time. I spent 38 years commanding Dominion fleets. I thought superiority came from possessing better weapons. He looked back at Briggs. Your people taught me something. What was that? The most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. He glanced toward the Resolute visible through the bridge windows. Isn't a ship. It is an engineer who refuses to accept that something cannot be improved. The transmission ended. Several weeks later, the Resolute returned to Lunar Shipyard 1. Its scarred hull became an instant symbol of human determination. Visitors traveled from every nation simply to see it. The damaged armor remained unrepaired in several places. Not because engineers couldn't fix it, because the crew voted to leave the scars untouched. Each mark reminded future generations that peace had never been guaranteed. It had been earned. Dr. Elena Carter walked alone through the quiet corridors one evening. Construction crews were already upgrading the vessel again. Larger reactors, improved railguns, new sensor systems. Humanity had no intention of stopping. She eventually reached the chamber containing the tactical core. The black crystal glowed softly. You've been quiet. The AI answered. Processing. She smiled. Still learning about humans? Affirmative. She laughed. You'll be studying us forever. A brief pause followed. Then the ancient intelligence asked something unexpected. Permission to ask a personal question. You've earned it. The crystal pulsed. Why did humanity continue improving this vessel after achieving victory? Elena thought for a long moment. Finally, she answered. Because victory isn't our finish line. It's proof we're capable of reaching the next one. The tactical core remained silent for several seconds. Then, for the first time since awakening, it updated its own identity. Across every console inside the chamber, one line appeared. Tactical Core designation updated. Affiliation, United Earth Navy. Below it, a second line slowly formed. Home.